Have you ever promised yourself, and I mean like really truly promised yourself in a moment of absolute clarity that you were finally going to overhaul your life?
Oh, yeah. I think literally everyone listening knows the exact feeling you're talking about.
Right. It usually hits on a Sunday night. You get this sudden, almost intoxicating burst of
The
motivation.
Sunday night reset.
Exactly, the reset. You map it all out in your head. You tell yourself, okay, tomorrow morning, the alarm goes off at 5 a.m. I'm going for a run. I'm meal prepping. I'm finally going to sit down and write those 50 pages. Or I'm going to get completely ruthless with my budget.
And I mean, for a couple of days, it actually works.
It does. You feel like a completely new person. But then Wednesday rolls around.
It's always Wednesday.
Always Wednesday. You have a stressful meeting. It's raining outside. You're just, tired. And a few weeks later, the new running shoes are shoved in the back of the closet. The budget app is deleted, and you're just right back where you started.
Yeah, and honestly, the worst part isn't even that you stopped. It's the internal monologue that follows that failure.
I get guilt.
The guilt is crushing. You look in the mirror and think, what is structurally wrong with my willpower? Like, why am I fundamentally incapable of discipline?
Yes, and that's exactly the myth we are going to dismantle today. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt that crushing sense of failure after abandoning a new habit, the premise we are unpacking today is going to completely rewrite how you view yourself.
It really is a total paradigm shift.
Our mission in this deep dive is to look under the hood of human behavior. We are drawing on the deep functional mechanics laid out in James Clear's Atomic Habits. But we aren't just going to skim the surface of his advice, right? We want to understand the actual neurobiology, the evolutionary psychology, and the choice architecture that dictates why we do what we do. We are basically looking for the operating manual for the human brain.
And to read that manual, we have to start by completely discarding the way modern culture thinks about self-improvement.
Throw it out the window.
Literally. We have to adopt a shift that feels very counterintuitive at first. If you are struggling to change your behavior, your willpower is not the culprit.
Wait, really?
Really?
Yeah.
Your level of discipline is completely irrelevant. The actual problem is the invisible architecture surrounding you. The problem is your system.
Your system.
Right. Bad habits don't repeat themselves because you secretly want to fail. They repeat themselves because you are operating within a system that is perfectly optimized to produce those bad habits.
Okay, I want to push on that immediately because the word system gets thrown around in corporate seminars so much that it's kind of lost all meaning.
Oh, it sounds incredibly abstract.
It does. It sounds like buzzword bingo. So, to really ground what a behavioral system looks like in reality, I think we have to look at the story of Dave Brailsford and the British cycling team.
Oh, this is such a fascinating case study.
It's incredible. But the premise is almost comical. So for nearly a century, British cycling was the absolute laughingstock of the athletic world. From, I think, 1908 to 2003, they had managed to win a single Olympic gold medal.
One medal in 100 years.
One. And in the Tour de France, arguably the biggest event in the sport, a British rider had never won. Not once in 110 years.
Their reputation was just abysmal.
It was so dismal that some of the top European bicycle manufacturers actually refused to sell equipment to the British team.
Wait, they wouldn't even sell them bikes?
No. They feared it would actively damage their brand equity to be associated with such a losing organization.
That level of sustained failure isn't just a streak of bad luck. When an organization loses consistently for a century, failure is just baked into the cultural and operational DNA.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point.
Exactly. The athletes expect to lose, the coaches expect to lose, and the training reflects that underlying expectation.
Right. So in 2003, they bring in Dave Brailsford as the new performance director. Now, conventional leadership wisdom dictates that when an organization is failing that spectacularly, you need a massive overhaul.
You fire everyone.
Right. You fire everyone, you bring in a completely new revolutionary training regimen, you set a terrifyingly ambitious goal. But Brailsford did the exact opposite.
He didn't focus on the massive goals at all.
No. He didn't set a goal to win the Tour de France. He didn't demand a 50% improvement in speed. He introduced a philosophy he called the aggregation of marginal gains.
The 1% rule.
Yes. The entire strategy was simply to break down every conceivable component of riding a bicycle and look for a 1% improvement in each tiny area.
And the psychology behind that approach is brilliant because it completely bypasses the brain's threat detection system.
How so?
Well, when you try to change everything about your life overnight, like when you try to overhaul your diet, your sleep, and your exercise all at once, your brain's amygdala actually perceives that massive disruption as a threat to your survival.
Oh, wow. So your brain is literally fighting you.
Exactly. It triggers a stress response that almost inevitably leads to burnout. But by focusing only on microscopic 1% changes, Brailsford just slipped these improvements right past the athlete's cognitive defenses.
That makes so much sense. And the granularity of what they looked at is where the genius really lies. I mean, they obviously tested aerodynamics in wind tunnels and the weight of the carbon fiber frames. That's standard sports stuff.
Right, everyone does that.
But they went into areas no one else even considered part of the sport.
The examples are just wild.
They literally painted the inside of the team's transportation truck stark white.
Wait, the inside of the truck?
Yes. Not for aesthetic reasons, but because a white interior allowed the mechanics to spot tiny specks of dust that would normally just go unnoticed in a dark truck.
Oh, because the dust gets into the gears.
Exactly. If that dust got into the finely tuned gears of the racing bikes, it could cause a microscopic degradation in performance.
That is incredibly meticulous.
It gets crazier. They tested dozens of different massage gels to find the specific compound that sped up muscle recovery by, like, a fraction of a percent.
And did they do something with sleep?
Yes. They figured out the exact firmness of the pillow and the material of the mattress that resulted in the most deep REM sleep for each individual rider.
For each specific person.
Yeah. And then, instead of relying on random hotel beds during the Tour de France, they literally hauled those custom mattresses to every single hotel on the circuit.
That is dedication to the system.
Yeah.
They even hired a surgeon to come in and teach the Olympic athletes the optimal way to wash their hands.
Hand washing for cyclists.
Yeah. The logic was totally sound, though. A 1% reduction in viral load means a slightly lower chance of an athlete catching a cold, which means fewer missed training days, which maintains their VO2 max over a 4-year Olympic cycle.
I can just imagine the pushback Brailsford got. I mean, you're a professional athlete, you're training for the Olympics, and your coach is standing there with a surgeon explaining how to use antibacterial soap.
Right. It sounds obsessive, almost pathological.
You'd think, how on earth is my pillow gonna help me pedal faster up the French Alps?
But the aggregation of those tiny gains created an absolute avalanche of success.
It really did. 5 years after Brailsford took over, British cycling goes to the 2008 Beijing Olympics and wins 60% of all the gold medals available in the sport.
60%, that's unheard of.
And the momentum didn't even stop there. 4 years later at the London Olympics, they set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records.
And what about the grand prize, the Tour de France?
In 2012, Bradley Wiggins became the first British cyclist to ever win it. The very next year, his teammate Chris Froome won. Froome went on to win again and again, leading the team to 5 Tour de France victories in a 6-year window.
They went from a century of global embarrassment to a dynasty of absolute dominance in less than 10 years.
It's an incredible story, but let's connect the dots here because we aren't just, telling sports anecdotes for the fun of it. The British cycling turnaround is the ultimate physical manifestation of how habits function mathematically.
It absolutely is.
We suffer from this collective delusion that massive success requires massive action. If you want to lose 50 pounds, build a massive business, or write a novel, you convince yourself you need to take some Herculean leap that shakes the earth.
But the math of the compound effect tells a completely different story.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this.
The mechanism of compounding is just as real in neurobiology as it is in finance. If you improve by just 1% every single day for 1 year, the math dictates that you don't just become 365% better.
Because it compounds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the gains build on the previous day's gains, you end up mathematically 37 times better than when you started.
37 times? That's massive.
Conversely, if you decline by 1% a day, you approach absolute zero. The trajectory is everything.
But I struggle with that idea in practice. I really do. Like, a 1% improvement on any given Tuesday feels completely meaningless to me.
How so?
Well, if I want to learn Spanish, and I learn one new word today, I am not suddenly fluent. If I do 3 push-ups right now, my physical appearance does not change 1 iota. The action feels entirely disconnected from the result I want.
And that disconnection you feel,
Yeah.
that is the central conflict of human behavior change.
Yeah.
It is what the text refers to as the plateau of latent potential.
The plateau of latent potential.
Yes, we have been conditioned by a very modern, immediate gratification culture to expect progress to be linear. You put in a unit of effort, you expect to see a unit of result right away.
Right, like putting a coin in a vending machine.
Exactly. But compounding processes are never linear. They are exponential. And the defining characteristic of an exponential curve is that the vast majority of the visible growth happens at the very end of the timeline.
Which creates what I like to call the valley of disappointment.
Oh, that's a perfect term for it.
Let's say you decide to get fit. You go to the gym every day for 4 weeks. You're waking up early, your muscles are aching, you are sacrificing your comfort. On day 30, you stand on the scale, and the needle hasn't moved a single millimeter.
It's the worst feeling in the world.
It is. You look in the mirror, and nothing has changed. The human brain looks at that data and just screams, "This is a failed experiment. We are expending precious energy and receiving zero biological reward, so naturally you quit."
And this is where we have to understand what is actually happening physically when we try to build a habit. When you quit on day 30, you assume your effort was wasted.
Because there's no visible result.
Right. But in reality, your effort was simply being stored. The neurological work was happening, it just hadn't crossed the threshold of external visibility yet. A much better way to visualize this than the standard growth metaphors is to think about carving a new riverbed.
Okay, I like that. How does that work?
Well, breaking a deeply ingrained bad habit is like trying to redirect a massive, rushing river. The water represents your neural pathways, specifically the myelin sheaths that insulate neurons and make signals travel faster.
So biology is the water.
Yes. Over years of repeating a bad habit, your brain has carved a deep, smooth canyon for that behavior. The water naturally flows there because it's the path of least resistance.
Right, it's just easy.
When you decide to build a new habit, you're essentially standing on dry land with a shovel, trying to dig a new trench. For weeks, you dig and dig. It's exhausting. And if you look at the new trench, it's totally dry. There's no water in it.
Because you haven't diverted the river yet.
Exactly. That's the valley of disappointment. But every single time you perform the new habit, you're digging that trench a little deeper.
And eventually you hit a tipping point.
Precisely. You hit a point where the new trench is deeper than the old one and the water just rushes in.
So the habit finally becomes automatic.
In neuroscience, this is rooted in Hebbian theory. Neurons that fire together wire together. You are literally altering the physical structure of your brain, thickening the myelin around the new behavioral pathway.
But that physical construction takes time.
It takes a lot of time. And when you finally break through that plateau and the results become visible, when you suddenly drop the weight or publish the book or speak the language, the outside world will look at you and call it an overnight success.
Oh, people love to say that.
Right. They only see the water rushing down the new riverbed. They never saw the months of dry, agonizing digging you did in the dark.
I understand the biology of it, but I'll play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
I am a deeply, deeply impatient person. If you tell me that my progress is going to be completely invisible for 6 months while my brain slowly myelinates a new pathway, my immediate reaction is just total frustration.
Sure, that's completely natural.
So how does an impatient person actually survive the valley of disappointment? What keeps you digging when the trench is dry? I compare it to investing in the stock market. The most powerful results of any compounding process are heavily delayed.
That's a great analogy. And the way you survive it is by completely divorcing yourself from the outcome.
Divorcing yourself.
You have to undergo a radical shift in focus. As long as your primary focus is on the finish line, the gap between where you are and where you want to be will always feel like a failure.
That makes sense. You feel inadequate every day until you win.
Exactly. To survive the plateau, you must stop looking at the goal and start looking obsessively at the machinery that gets you there.
Which transitions us perfectly into one of the most controversial, kind of countercultural arguments in this entire philosophy. The idea that systems are vastly superior to goals.
It is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of overachievers.
It flies in the face of literally everything we are taught. I mean, from grade school to corporate boardrooms, it's all about setting smart goals, defining your KPIs, creating vision boards. We're told that keeping our eyes on the prize is the only way to achieve anything. How can having a goal possibly be a flaw?
Because goals suffer from massive survivorship bias.
Survivorship bias. Okay, unpack that for me.
We look at the Olympic gold medalists, we interview them, and they say, "I set a goal to win gold when I was a child."
And we immediately conclude that the goal caused the success.
Exactly. But what we don't see are the thousands of athletes who set the exact same goal, trained for years, and didn't even make the qualifying team. Every single candidate applying for a job as the goal of getting the job.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a really good point.
If successful and unsuccessful people share the exact same goals, then the goal itself cannot be the differentiating factor.
That is a fascinating way to look at it. The goal is just a compass bearing. It tells you which direction to walk, but it does absolutely nothing to help you move your feet.
None of the heavy lifting.
Right. And I think there is a darker side to goal setting too, which is the emotional yo-yo effect it creates.
The yo-yo effect is brutal.
I've seen this happen with so many friends who get into marathon running. They decide their goal is to run 26.2 miles. For 6 months, their entire life is meticulously structured around this goal.
They turn into machines.
Literal machines. They wake up at 4 a.m., they run in the freezing rain, they track every single calorie. Then race day comes. They cross the finish line, they get the medal, they take the Instagram photo. What happens the very next week?
The running stops.
It completely stops. The shoes go in the closet and don't come out for a year.
Because the external motivation, the goal, has been achieved. It evaporates.
If your entire operational structure is built around achieving one specific finite outcome, what on earth is supposed to drive your behavior once you hit it?
This touches on the difference between playing a finite game versus an infinite game.
Okay, what's the difference?
A goal is a finite game. You play to win, you hit the target, the game ends. But a behavioral system is an infinite game. The objective isn't to win. The objective is to continue playing the game.
To keep the cycle going.
Yes. The purpose of building a system isn't to achieve one isolated accomplishment. It's to create a continuous cycle of endless refinement. True, sustainable, long-term thinking is actually goalless thinking.
Goalless thinking. That phrasing is going to make some middle managers very nervous.
Oh, HR departments hate it.
But it's incredibly freeing for the individual. There is a quote in the source text that completely rewired my brain on this topic. It says, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems."
This is a powerful quote.
I want everyone listening to just let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems.
It is arguably the most sobering, but also the most empowering realization in behavioral psychology. It means your current life is a perfect reflection of your current systems.
So if my goal is to write a novel, but my system is watching 3 hours of television every night,
You will fall to the level of the television system, regardless of how badly you want to be an author.
that hurts. That's a painful truth.
But the flip side is amazing. If you abandon the goal of writing a book entirely, and you simply build a system where you write 200 words every single morning while your coffee brews, you will inevitably produce a book as a byproduct of the system. The outcome just takes care of itself.
And this perfectly clarifies the use of the word atomic in Atomic Habits. I think the immediate cultural association with atomic is an explosion.
Right, like an atomic bomb.
Exactly, something massive, loud, and world-changing. But the text is using the scientific definition. Atoms are the microscopic, invisible building blocks of molecules. They are tiny, fundamental units.
And that's exactly what these habits are.
Right, an atomic habit is a fundamental unit of a larger system. It is a tiny routine that on its own seems completely insignificant, but when aggregated, produces immense compound power.
Exactly. Just as atoms bond to build molecules, which build cells, which build complex organisms, your atomic habits build the daily routines, which build the systems, which ultimately construct the architecture of your entire life. You aren't just trying to read 10 pages a day. You are installing a cognitive processing system.
But this raises a major logistical question. If I'm supposed to abandon my goals and stop focusing on the outcome, how do I know what system to build?
That's the logical next question.
If I don't have a destination, aren't I just wandering aimlessly, building random habits? How do we orient ourselves?
To answer that, we have to go deeper into the psychology of change, moving past what you do and into who you believe you are. We need to visualize behavior change as a target with 3 concentric circles.
Okay, 3 circles, like a dartboard.
Exactly like a dartboard.
Yeah.
The outermost circle is your outcomes. This is what you get: losing 20 pounds, publishing a paper, saving $10,000.
The results.
Right. The middle circle is your processes. This is what you do: your gym routine, your writing schedule, your budget.
The system itself.
Yes. And the innermost circle, the absolute bullseye of the target, is your identity. This is what you believe: your worldview, your deep-seated self-image, your cognitive biases about your own capabilities.
And the trap that almost 99% of us fall into is that we try to change from the outside in.
All the time.
We start with a results-based habit. We say, I want to be a healthier person, which is the outcome. Then we figure out a process. I'm going to endure a miserable diet for 3 months. But we never touch the bullseye.
We completely ignore it.
We never address the underlying beliefs that drive the behavior in the first place.
And what's fascinating here is that ignoring that inner circle creates massive cognitive dissonance. If you try to adopt a behavior that is incongruent with your internal identity, that behavior will not survive.
It just rejects it like a bad organ transplant.
Exactly. You can use willpower to drag yourself out of bed and go for a run for a few weeks, but if your core, deeply held identity is, I am the kind of person who hates exercise and prioritizes comfort, that identity will eventually sabotage the new behavior.
Because your brain doesn't like contradictions.
It hates them. It wants your actions to match your beliefs. So, the ultimate shift is moving away from results-based habits, where the focus is on what you want to achieve, and moving toward identity-based habits, where the focus is on who you wish to become.
Let's make this really tangible, because I think a lot of people struggle with financial habits specifically.
That's a great example.
Say someone's goal is to save money. Setting a budget is just a process. Hitting a specific savings target is the outcome. But if your internal identity, the story you tell yourself, is that you are a consumer.
Right.
If your identity is someone who relieves stress by shopping, or someone whose social status is tied to wearing expensive brands, you will always find a way to sabotage your budget.
Always.
The internal friction is just too high. Your behavior is fighting your identity, and the identity has a home field advantage.
Precisely. True. Permanent behavior change is identity change. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner.
That subtle shift in language is huge.
It changes everything. Once your behavior and your identity are perfectly aligned, you are no longer relying on motivation or discipline. You are simply acting in accordance with the type of person you already believe yourself to be. A runner doesn't need to force themselves to run, it's just what they do. The behavior becomes an effortless expression of the self.
Okay, I love the theory, but I'm going to call foul on how this actually works in practice.
Fair enough. Let's hear it.
I can't just stand in front of my bathroom mirror, look at my out-of-shape body, snap my fingers, and loudly declare, I am now a disciplined athlete.
No, definitely not.
My brain knows I'm lying. The cognitive dissonance would be deafening. How do you actually manufacture a new identity from scratch?
You're absolutely right to call that out. The brain is an excellent bullshit detector. This is why empty positive affirmations rarely result in deep psychological change.
I am a millionaire, I am a millionaire. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Right. Identity isn't something you can just declare. It is something you must prove to yourself through empirical evidence. Your identity emerges out of your habits. This is rooted in a psychological concept called self-signaling theory.
Self-signaling theory.
Yes. The theory states that we don't just act based on who we are. We figure out who we are by observing our own actions. Think of every action you take as casting a vote for the type of person you wish to become.
The voting mechanism. This concept completely changed how I evaluate my daily choices. It reframes everything.
It does, because it lowers the stakes of any single action while highlighting the importance of the aggregate. You don't become a writer because you announce it at a dinner party.
Right.
But every morning that you sit down and type a single paragraph, you are casting a vote for the identity of a writer. If you do 5 minutes of yoga in your living room, you are casting a vote for the identity of someone who prioritizes physical health.
And a single vote doesn't transform your core beliefs overnight.
No, of course not. But as the votes accumulate over weeks and months, the evidence of your new identity becomes undeniable, even to your skeptical brain.
That is so profoundly liberating, because it means you don't need a unanimous victory.
Exactly.
In any election, there are votes cast for both sides. If I have a terrible day, skip the gym, and eat an entire pizza, I haven't destroyed my progress. I just cast a heavily weighted vote for my old identity, but I don't need 100% of the votes to win the election.
You just need a majority.
I just need to make sure I am casting more votes for the new identity than the old one. The atomic habits matter not because they burn a significant amount of calories, but because they provide the indisputable evidence to your own subconscious that you are undergoing a microevolution.
And once that new identity crosses the threshold of belief, the habits begin to lock into place automatically. So the practical challenge becomes, how do we design our daily lives so that casting these good votes is as frictionless as possible?
Right. If we are building a voting machine, how do we engineer it to rig the election in our favor?
I love that phrasing.
This brings us to the actual mechanics of habit formation. the 4 laws of behavior change, and the concept of the environment as the invisible hand.
To understand how to engineer a habit, we have to understand the neurological loop that governs it. We have to look at the work of psychologist Edward Thorndike back in 1898.
Okay, taking us back to the 19th century.
Yeah, he conducted these famous experiments where he placed cats inside puzzle boxes. The cats had to figure out how to press a specific lever or pull a loop of string to open a door and get to a bowl of fish outside the box.
I always picture these frantic cats just thrashing around inside a wooden crate.
That's exactly what happened initially. The cats would bite the bars, claw at the walls, completely random behavior. But eventually, by pure accident, they would press the lever, the door would open, and they'd get the reward.
And then he just put them right back in.
He put them right back in the box. Over multiple trials, the random frantic behavior decreased, and the specific, successful behavior pressing the lever increased dramatically in speed and efficiency.
So they learned the system.
Thorndike realized that behaviors followed by satisfying consequences tend to be repeated, while behaviors followed by unpleasant consequences are abandoned. Decades of subsequent neuroscience have refined this into a 4-stage loop that every single habit follows: cue, craving, response, and reward.
Okay, let's map those 4 stages onto a modern human habit. Let's use checking our phones, since we're all addicted to them.
Perfect example.
The cue is the environmental trigger. Your phone screen lights up or buzzes. The craving is the internal neurochemical desire. You get a spike of dopamine anticipating the new information. The response is the physical action. You pick up the phone, unlock it, and open the app. And the reward is the satisfaction. You read the text message, satisfying your curiosity. Cue, craving, response, reward.
Every single automated behavior you perform goes through those 4 stages in that precise order. It is a neurological feedback loop.
It's like a computer program running in the background.
It really is. And if a behavior is missing even one of those 4 stages, it will not become a habit. Eliminate the cue and the habit never starts. Reduce the craving and you won't experience enough drive to act. Make the response too difficult and you won't be able to execute it. Make the reward unsatisfying and your brain won't bother remembering it for next time.
So the 4 laws of behavior change are really just practical rules for manipulating those 4 stages.
Yes, sir.
If you want to build a good habit, you must make the cue obvious, make the craving attractive, make the response easy, and make the reward satisfying. And if you want to break a bad habit, you run the laws in reverse. Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying.
Let's dive deep into the first law, make it obvious. This law forces us to confront a very uncomfortable truth about human autonomy.
Which is?
We love to believe that we are highly rational creatures, making deliberate, conscious choices based on our internal motivation. But in reality, motivation is incredibly fragile.
So fragile.
It's a transient state, driven by neuromodulators that fluctuate based on your sleep, your blood sugar, and your stress levels. You cannot build a durable behavioral system on something that vanishes just because you skip lunch.
This is where we have to talk about choice architecture. The environment is the invisible hand that dictates our behavior far more than our willpower ever does.
Without a doubt.
There is a brilliant study cited in the text by Dr. Anne Thorndike. Interestingly, no relation to the cat puzzle box guy.
Which is a crazy coincidence.
I know, right? She was a physician at Massachusetts General Hospital, and she wanted to improve the eating habits of thousands of hospital staff and visitors. But she set a seemingly impossible constraint for her study. She wasn't allowed to talk to anyone, she couldn't offer any nutritional education, and she couldn't try to manipulate their willpower or motivation in any way.
It sounds impossible. How do you change the diets of thousands of adults without telling them to eat better?
You rearrange the physical architecture of their environment. She focused on the hospital cafeteria. Before the intervention, the refrigerators located immediately next to the cash registers were filled exclusively with soda. It was the most visible, accessible drink.
The default choice.
Exactly. She didn't ban the soda or put up warning signs. She simply added bottled water to those main refrigerators, and then she placed additional baskets of bottled water at various food stations throughout the room. She just made water more obvious and pervasive.
The data from that subtle shift is staggering.
It really is. Over the next 3 months, without a single motivational poster or health warning, soda sales in the cafeteria dropped by over 11%, and bottled water sales surged by nearly 26%.
That's huge for a passive intervention.
Thousands of people completely changed their biological consumption habits. They didn't suddenly experience a surge of internal discipline. They didn't have an epiphany about their health. They simply defaulted to the behavior that the environment made most obvious.
It proves that we constantly choose products and behaviors, not because of what they are, but because of where they are.
Yes, if you are struggling to drink enough water, don't buy a motivational water jug and rely on discipline. Change your choice architecture. Put a full glass of water on your nightstand so it's the first thing you see when you wake up. Put one on your desk. Make the cue so painfully obvious that ignoring it requires more effort than executing it.
And this brings up a crucial nuance about how the brain processes these environmental cues. The brain creates spatial maps. It associates specific locations with specific behaviors and cognitive states. Context itself becomes the cue.
I've noticed this vividly since the shift to remote work.
Oh, it's a huge problem now.
If you live in a small apartment, it is incredibly easy to mix your contexts. You sit on your couch, you open your laptop to answer work emails, then you eat your dinner on that same couch, and then you watch Netflix on that same couch.
From a neurological standpoint, you are scrambling your brain circuitry. When you sit on that couch, the brain is receiving entirely mixed signals. What is the cue? Are we supposed to be in a state of high-focus productivity, a state of digestion, or a state of relaxed entertainment?
It doesn't know.
Right. And when contexts are mixed, the brain defaults to the law of least effort. The easiest habit almost always wins, which is why you end up watching television when you fully intended to work.
So, to engineer a successful environment, every habit should have a designated, isolated home. A specific chair is only for reading. A specific desk is only for working. The dining table is only for eating. You want to hardwire the physical space to trigger a singular, specific identity.
That perfectly bridges us into the third law. Make it easy. Because even if a cue is incredibly obvious, even if my running shoes are sitting right in the middle of the hallway, if the behavior itself is perceived as too difficult, the brain will reject it.
And this is where we have to stop viewing laziness as a moral failing and start understanding it as an evolutionary feature.
Absolutely. The law of least effort states that when deciding between two similar options, biological organisms will naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of energy expenditure.
We view this as a character flaw, like a lack of discipline.
But millions of years ago, on the savannah, energy was a precious, finite resource. If our ancestors expended unnecessary energy, they starved or were eaten. The human brain is literally hardwired by evolution to be lazy, to conserve energy at all costs in order to keep you alive.
So when a self-help guru yells at you to just push through the pain and use more discipline, they are literally asking you to fight a war against millions of years of evolutionary biology.
You might win a battle or two on a Sunday morning, but evolution is going to win the war.
Exactly. You cannot out-discipline your biology long-term. Instead of trying to force friction into the system, we must design a world where doing the right thing is the path of least resistance. We need a smoother runway.
Right. If you want to work out in the morning, the friction of finding your clothes, lacing your shoes, and packing your gym bag at 5 a.m. is just too high. The brain will choose sleep.
Obviously.
But if you sleep in your workout clothes, put your keys in your shoes, and place them by the door, you have reduced the number of steps between the intention and the action to near zero.
I find this fascinating, but here is where I really want to flip the script.
Okay, let's flip it.
We are talking about reducing friction to build good habits. But how do we weaponize this evolutionary laziness to destroy a bad habit? Silicon Valley tech companies spend billions of dollars engineering friction out of their apps to keep us addicted. How do we put the friction back in?
We use the inversion of the laws, make the bad habit invisible, and make it difficult. We consciously introduce friction into the environment to trigger our natural laziness.
Let's use the most common modern bad habit: mindless doom scrolling in bed.
Oh, everyone does it.
If your phone is on your nightstand, the friction is zero. The cue is obvious, the response is incredibly easy. To weaponize your laziness, you change the choice architecture, you buy a cheap alarm clock for your bedroom, and you commit to plugging your phone into a charger in the kitchen every night.
So now, when the craving hits at 11:30 p.m. and you want to check social media, the biological math changes.
Drastically.
The brain does a rapid subconscious calculation. To get the dopamine hit from the phone, I have to throw off these warm blankets, get out of bed, walk down a cold, dark hallway, and stand barefoot in the kitchen.
And suddenly, the evolutionary drive to conserve energy kicks in, but this time, it's working for you.
Exactly. Your brain concludes, that is way too much effort, the caloric expenditure isn't worth the reward, I'll just go to sleep. You didn't use discipline to defeat the bad habit, you used your own inherent laziness as a judo move against it.
It's brilliant. You make the bad habit economically unviable for the brain. Okay, so we've mapped out the environment, we've made the good habit obvious, we've stripped away the friction so it's incredibly easy. We are casting votes for our new identity, but even the easiest habit eventually gets boring.
It always does.
Which brings us back to that valley of disappointment we discussed earlier. How do we sustain the behavior long enough for the compounding math to take effect?
That requires us to understand the final piece of the neurological puzzle. The satisfaction requirement, or the fourth law, make it satisfying.
Right.
The foundational rule of operant conditioning is simple. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. For a habit to stick, the brain must register a positive emotional signal, a hit of dopamine, immediately after the behavior.
But this reveals a massive structural flaw in how humans operate in the modern world, right? We have an evolutionary mismatch.
A profound mismatch. Our brains evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in what anthropologists call an immediate return environment.
Meaning everything was right now.
Right. Our ancestors were focused entirely on the present moment. You forage for berries, you eat them immediately, you get a caloric reward. You see a predator, you run away immediately, you get the reward of survival. The brain's dopamine system is perfectly calibrated to value immediate payoffs. But today, we live in a delayed return environment.
Almost everything we consider a good habit requires us to act against our biology. You go to work today, but the paycheck doesn't arrive for 2 weeks.
Exactly.
You endure a grueling workout today, but the reward, a healthy cardiovascular system, doesn't materialize for months or years. You put money in a 401k today, and the reward is literally delayed for 4 decades.
Which perfectly explains why bad habits are so insidious. Bad habits almost always provide an immediate reward while the negative consequences are delayed.
Right. Smoke a cigarette, you get an immediate hit of nicotine and stress relief. The lung cancer doesn't arrive for 20 years.
You eat a donut, you get an immediate sugar rush, the weight gain happens next month. The brain prioritizes the immediate dopamine spike and ignores the distant consequence.
And good habits are the exact inverse. The sacrifice is immediate, but the reward is distant.
So, if our neurological hardware is desperately searching for an immediate reward, but the actual physical benefits of our good habits are months away, how do we bridge that gap?
You have to artificially manufacture an immediate reward. You have to attach a small, immediate hit of satisfaction to the end of the good habit to appease the primitive brain while you wait for the long-term compounding to mature.
There is a fantastic, highly practical example of this in the text. There was a couple who realized they were spending way too much money eating out at restaurants, and they wanted to build a habit of cooking at home to save for a vacation.
The problem is, when you are tired after work, the act of not going to a restaurant doesn't feel like a victory.
It feels like deprivation.
Exactly. The immediate emotion is sacrifice and frustration.
Right, there is no dopamine hit in not doing something.
So they created a separate savings account and explicitly named it Europe Trip. Every single time they stayed home and cooked a meal instead of eating out, they would immediately open their banking app and transfer $50 into the Europe Trip account.
That is a masterclass in behavioral engineering.
Isn't it?
They took a delayed reward, a vacation next year, and extracted a piece of it to use as an immediate reward today. The act of cooking at home was suddenly capped off with a satisfying visual cue. They watched the number in their travel account tick upward.
The brain registered a win. It wasn't just vague responsibility, it was, we just bought a round of drinks in Paris. They successfully bridged the delayed return gap.
But we have to be incredibly careful here, because there is a trap hidden in this strategy. If you pick the wrong immediate reward, you can accidentally obliterate the identity you are trying to build.
Oh, this is a critical caveat.
The short-term reward you choose must align with the long-term identity you are casting votes for. Let's say you are trying to build an identity as an athlete, so you start running. If you finish a 3-mile run and reward yourself by eating a massive bowl of ice cream, you are scrambling your behavioral system.
You just cast a vote for the athlete identity and immediately followed it with a heavily weighted vote for the junk food consumer identity.
You're canceling out your own progress. The voting machine is completely confused.
Exactly. The reward has to reinforce the new identity, not contradict it. If you finish your run and reward yourself with a hot Epsom salt bath, or by transferring $10 into a fund for new running shoes, or simply by taking an hour to relax and read a book completely guilt-free.
Those rewards feel satisfying, but they also align perfectly with the identity of someone who respects and takes care of their body.
And the beauty of this is that the artificial rewards are just training wheels. Eventually, as the compounding math starts to work, the intrinsic rewards kick in.
Right. Once you actually start feeling stronger, sleeping better, and having more energy, you don't need to transfer $10 to a shoe fund anymore.
The identity itself becomes the ultimate reinforcement. You run because you are a runner, and it feels fundamentally good to act in accordance with who you are.
That is the ultimate goal of the system. But we can't wrap up this analysis without addressing a very counterintuitive warning the author provides toward the end of the material. There's actually a hidden danger in successfully building habits.
Wait, how can a good habit have a downside? The whole point is to automate the behavior so we don't have to think about it.
The downside is the automation. The purpose of a habit is to free up cognitive load. Once a behavior becomes automatic, the conscious brain stops paying attention to it. It delegates the action to the basal ganglia.
Okay, so you're running on autopilot.
Which is great for efficiency, but terrible for continuous improvement. Once we can perform a task good enough on autopilot, we stop looking for small errors. We stop seeking out those 1% marginal gains.
You see this all the time in gyms. You see the same person coming in for 3 years, doing the exact same workout routine, lifting the exact same weights, using the exact same form.
They've built an incredibly robust gym habit, which is fantastic, but their physical fitness plateaued 2.5 years ago. They stopped adapting.
Because they are missing the second half of the equation for greatness. The text introduces the mastery equation. Habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery.
A habit gets you into the gym automatically, but deliberate practice requires you to periodically turn the conscious brain back on.
You have to intentionally introduce a little bit of friction back into your own system. You must institute a process of reflection and review. You have to step back and ask, am I actually getting 1% better at this, or am I just blindly repeating a degraded version of the behavior?
Without reflection, automaticity leads to stagnation. With reflection, it leads to continuous evolution.
It's like having an incredibly reliable machine. You still have to pop the hood every 6 months, check the oil, and calibrate the gears, otherwise it's just going to slowly degrade.
That's exactly it.
We have covered a massive amount of psychological ground today. We've deconstructed the plateau of latent potential, the illusion of goals versus the reality of systems, the neuroscience of identity voting, choice architecture, and weaponizing our own laziness. But I want to pull all the way back.
Let's do it.
How do we conceptualize the true, holistic weight of these tiny atomic changes over the course of an entire lifetime?
To capture the magnitude of this, the text points to a classic philosophical puzzle from ancient Greece known as the Sorites paradox, or the paradox of the heap. It poses a very simple question. Does one single coin make a person rich?
The logical answer is obviously no. If I hand you a single penny, your financial status has not changed.
Right, but what if I add a second coin? Still no. A third? Still no. But if I keep adding coins, one by one, eventually you cross a threshold where you've accumulated a massive fortune.
You cannot pinpoint the exact coin that triggered the transformation.
Exactly, but you are forced to admit that adding one single coin can and does make someone rich, because without the single coins, the heap cannot exist.
That is such a vivid, powerful metaphor for how our brains process change. It perfectly maps onto atomic habits.
It really does. Does drinking one glass of water transform your biology today? No. Does writing one paragraph make you a novelist today? No. It feels completely insignificant. It's just one coin.
But what if you add another tomorrow, and another the next day?
The ultimate revelation of behavioral design is that the holy grail of self-improvement isn't finding one magic, revolutionary action that changes everything overnight. The true holy grail is 1,000 tiny 1% atomic choices, layered relentlessly on top of each other.
It brings us right back to Dave Brailsford and the British cycling team, the aggregation of marginal gains.
Precisely. In the beginning, when you are carving that new riverbed, your small changes are entirely overwhelmed by the massive weight of your old system. It feels like you are losing.
You're in that valley of disappointment.
But gradually, as you continue to cast votes for your new identity, you are adding grains of sand to the positive side of the scale. The weight shifts.
Yeah.
And eventually, the scale tips. The momentum reverses.
The profound beauty of building a system is that eventually the weight of the system starts working for you rather than against you. It actually becomes easier to do the good habit than to skip it.
You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems.
We have spent this entire deep dive deconstructing how to build that system, piece by piece, law by law. But a system is just a machine, And a machine requires a destination. That destination is not a goal. That destination is the identity you choose for yourself.
And that is the deepest takeaway from the material. The real reason you should build better habits isn't just because they can help you lose weight or save money or win a championship, although they certainly will do all of those things. The real reason atomic habits matter is because they are the only reliable mechanism we have to fundamentally rewrite the beliefs we hold about ourselves.
So, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today as you go back into your daily life. Take a hard, objective look at your routines exactly as they exist today. Don't judge them, just observe them. The good habits, the bad habits, the mindless scrolling in bed, the rushed breakfasts, the way you speak to your colleagues, the way you spend your evenings.
If every single action you take is a vote, what kind of person is your current system voting for?
Look at the tally. Is your daily machinery casting votes for the identity you actually want to hold? And if you don't like who is winning that election, what tiny 1% atomic habit can you use to cast a brand new vote tomorrow morning?